Today we're going to be talking about natural talent versus hard work. I've got Scott here with me today. I'm just going to dive a bit into it in terms of what gets you further, particularly in terms of being a professional sportsman. The biggest two names, I guess, are Messi and Ronaldo. These guys are painted very much in that category of natural talent versus hard work. But in terms of just the everyday person, I guess it might be a little bit different. So Scott, what do you think as a whole would get you further?
Oh yeah, tough question. I'm just going to be like, well, I'll answer it like this. I think the biggest comparison comes up between Messi and Ronaldo, but Messi, does he have potentially more natural talent? I think that always gets kind of brought up, but I think maybe from like a lower level, like me or you, does maybe hard work get you further? Because it's like the gap between...
I was thinking the opposite. I think at a lower level, natural talent would get you further. Because the natural talent without the hard work would cap.
Yeah, true. The thing is, they've always got to have some level of talent, right? Like,
yeah.
You've always got to have some level of talent. Maybe a little bit better than the average level. Like, we're talking about like lowest level that we're talking about. I think you still have to kind of be maybe like the top 5 or 10 players. But if you're looking at that, does then someone who's putting in the work, will they get potentially further than maybe someone who's really gifted, but they're kind of like, I don't need to come to training today, or...
I think they're already in the Premier League, you're more likely to see someone who has a lot of natural talent that you think, oh, they'd be so much better if they worked hard, versus someone that you go, oh, they've clearly worked so hard to make up for their lack of talent. I mean, that's how I feel anyway.
Well, there's different types of players. Like, there would be certain players that would know, like, oh, like, in terms of my skills, like, I'm, here where the average of the competition is here. So that's something that I always have that to get me out of trouble. But if you're someone, like, just has no, like, real, like, full skills, they're just kind of just a grinder. All they've got is their physical ability, like, or how hard they work.
Well, people might have painted Jordan Henderson with this brush, kind of saying like he's just like a hard worker.
Yeah.
Just committed every day. Maybe works the hardest in the team and that's why he can keep up. And maybe the guys who are naturally a bit better, I don't know if they get lazier, but they can get away with not working as hard. I think he probably gets criticised with that because the type of player he is isn't like a showboater.
Good job.
He is just kind of, a bit more of like an engine room type player where he's just ticking over, passing. Other attributes like leadership and stuff might get overlooked. Whereas the guy who's got all the skills in the world but is just lazy because he doesn't run back and defend and stuff, people can acknowledge, oh, like he's really skillful still.
Across all sports, sometimes people can get caught up with like, what's the absolute best that this player can do? And that's maybe they make some crazy runs through the midfield and they school like a few players and then, they end up scoring a goal. They might do that 1 out of like 10 games and like people are like, oh my God, like look at all this potential that he has. Like how great is he? But then someone like Jordan Henderson who's just kind of consistently doing the same thing week in, week out. And that's probably, maybe that has come from like a bulk of work that he's put in terms of like thinking, okay, these are my good attributes. I'm just going to work hard at them because I'm never going to be at the level of someone who has all this natural ability.
Let's say you had 2 scales. So one is like the guy who works the hardest has got 10 out of 10
right
in the work ethic, and the guy with the most natural talent, he's got 10 out of 10 in that stat. And if I said to you, here's 15 stars, how would you allocate them in terms of you could do like 10 out of 10 natural talent and 5 work ethic?
I'm following you.
Like, what do you think is the best balance? Or would you just go 7.5 each?
I still think that you would take work ethic because I feel like...
Over the talent?
Because I think the way that the game's played now, you can't be that player that's not pushing back and running back, or you can't be that player that doesn't press. Like, look at someone like Ronaldo. Like the biggest criticisms that he's had the last couple of years is he doesn't join in on team defence, or he doesn't push back as hard as other players, or join in on the team press, or however. But he's got all the skills in the world. Like, he can do whatever he likes.
That's maybe more a luxury. I don't know if like, because you've got Ronaldo in your team, all the other players like, okay, we need to kind of make up for it.
Yeah.
I saw McAllister from Argentina recently came out and he was like, oh, I hope Messi keeps playing until he's like 40, 45, and he's like, I don't care if you can't run, like we'll all run for him.
Yeah.
So that mentality of like having a player that is so skillful, everyone else willing to do the work for
When
him.
you first asked the question, I thought you meant like you've got 2 pools of 10 players, like these players are like really,
making a team of them. Well, I guess that's another question.
Like these players are like, they've got the most natural ability, but then you've got 10 really hard workers who are kind of just thereabouts type players. And then you've got to make a team of, let's say starting 11. I still think that you would go maybe 4 who are those really like natural ability, skillful players. And then the bulk of the team would be made up just with players who just accept, I'm not the star of this team, I need to play my role. Because you don't want 11 people who all think they're the best on that team. Maybe football is a little bit different to other sports, but like definitely other sports, like you need players that are purely there to play a certain role. Like they're not there to
just to work hard and
put pressure on, make big tackles. I don't know, like it would be across. Well, you look at other sports, like American sports and things. There's guys on the team just all they're doing is just blocking.
So they know they're not like the star of the show.
Yeah. And I feel like for a team to be successful, there needs to be those like self-sacrificing players. Like someone like a James Milner who probably just thinks, I'm not as skillful as these other guys. Like I've had to work. My attributes is how hard I can run, how hard I can press, pushing back, joining in on the team defense or however. I feel that you need those players in the team.
So do you think if you had someone like, if Lionel Messi then was born and didn't put any work in, and then you had someone who else has a lot less talent, I don't know, take a sportsman, and then put them in, and you just say, look, work as hard as you can every day. You devote your life to it.
You're still probably gonna take Messi, I think.
But who's gonna get further in the game? You think Messi?
If Messi's not putting any work in though, like if he's like being pretty lazy, maybe the guy putting in the work is probably gonna get the results. Because there are other aspects like getting yourself fit, getting your body right. I don't know, like I kind of.
How much does Messi walk in a game, and like how little is he actually? Maybe like you said, that there's a balance within a whole team where. If you've got like a good spine of like a good defender, a good midfielder, a good striker who are all like superstars and the rest of the team are just working hard.
Yeah, like a star on every line. Yeah.
Yeah, like Pogba at United, he had such terrible discipline, wasn't working hard, and everyone's like, why didn't it work out? He was there for so long, and I personally would deem that like a failure. But you see him at Juventus or France when he's got players around him who work hard, when he's got like Kante next to him, all of a sudden he's like that luxury player that you do see the positives to him, like he's got the skills and the passing.
Well, he's not having to pull his weight in doing those other aspects now, because that's kind of carried by the people in his team, where maybe when he is in the midfield of United, maybe it's an expectation of, hey man, like you need to pull your socks up and get involved in this as well, where like a team like France, they're obviously stacked, he's in the team for one reason. It's hard because I think like everyone's got that mate who is just good at all sports, right? It just rocks up, first time picking up.
You saw that, mate?
I was talking about myself.
Oh, yeah.
Picks up a set of golf clubs, or I don't know, you go down and play tennis or any sport, and they just pick it up really quickly. And obviously that is because of their natural ability. Maybe they've got, I don't know, better coordination, or maybe they're just a little bit more gifted in certain athletic traits, but maybe potentially that is probably going to always be because you can't just have someone who's got absolutely no ability at all, and he can put in as much work as he wants. He's only going to hit so far, because let's say like tennis, you could train as much as you want, but if you've got no natural ability for that sport, like you're going nowhere.
I guess there is like a minimum baseline that everyone would need, but I just think like if you're playing under 12s, right, and then you've got two kids in the team, one, you're like, this guy is just such a natural talent, he's got it all. And then you've got another kid in the team who just works so hard, he's there, training on his days off. Yeah. In your head at that age, you think, who's going to actually get further in this game?
You'd probably say maybe the guy that is working, because like to get to that top level, everyone's probably had to work pretty hard. Like no one's getting kind of a free ride to get there. That guy who's working hard has to have some level of ability though. Like,
there's like a minimum level.
It's interesting because like, I don't know if it happens so much in football, but other sports will identify sometimes athletes who do have some athletic attributes or like some level of natural talent. Now, but like, all right, this guy's not there yet, but he's got like a lot of raw ability or however, we're just going to pump a lot of work into him and take a risk. And sometimes it obviously pays off, and other times.
So you're saying the clubs are valuing the natural talent?
Yeah, well, they'll see someone and they'll go like, oh, this player fits the type of player. Like in the AFL, it would happen sometimes. Maybe someone's picked up the sport late, but they show really kind of moments of brilliance, or maybe they've got the physical size or the attributes or however to play the game, and they'll be like, all right, this, we think that we can get this player to this level, so they'll put in the effort to then get them to.
Would that then kind of make the opposite point that I felt like you were making from the start, where the natural talent is something that you can't buy or you can't obtain, whereas if you ever go in natural talent, you can teach the hard work. Yeah, and I think maybe that is more important, because I think anytime you get into a professional club, like unless you're the absolute biggest name in the world, the manager or the coach or however, they're not going to be very happy with you just like, oh yeah, I'm just here because I'm the best or whatever. Like you're going to have to still put in the work, and if your attitude stinks, like they're probably just going to get rid of you. Yeah, I feel like the guy who's working hard, you can't go, okay, here you go, mate, like let's teach you some more natural ability, like here's some more skills for you. But the guy who is so good already, and you're like, hey, look, if you just train a bit more, do this,
Yeah.
that is an option.
Sometimes even in the AFL, it kind of happens the flip side though, where they'll just earmark someone like, oh, this guy's just an athlete. Like, we'll train him to kick. Those ones probably don't work out as much. It's more like the players, like, they always seem to be like the kind of bad boy player as well. Like, like, I don't know, the one maybe getting in trouble on the weekend, or
People love a bad boy, hey?
yeah. Or like, I don't know, so they have all this talent, and always the question is like, oh, if they just worked hard, they could be anything type thing, but they have all this natural talent, and that's kind of what gets them by. And there are games where they will dominate and turn it up, but the consistency that they do it is probably not as much as, say, someone who's that really grinder, kind of hard worker, who might not dominate games, but at least they're in every game, if that makes sense.
Well, are we underestimating then the point I just made about, oh, he needs to work hard? Like, you can't just go, like, work harder.
Oh, no,
you can't
definitely
just,
not.
You
Yeah.
don't, you can't just overnight have the discipline to train more.
Yeah.
Like, maybe that is a talent in itself that people are underestimating.
Well, I think it comes from heaps of things. It could be their passion. Like, I don't know, who knows? Like, heaps of professional sports players come out and say they don't even like playing what they do. They just do it for money. So to motivate someone like that to be, oh, work harder, it starts getting a bit more tough, because they might have heaps of different other priorities where they're like, oh, you know, maybe playing football is, you know, my second priority. I reckon that if you had to say, all right, which is the more important, I think potentially always probably natural talent, because you have to have some level of ability, and I think that it's probably easier to help them in getting to the level that they need to be in terms of their fitness or how hard they want to work. Or
So if you've got a player then, let's say like a Premier League player,
Yeah.
a player at the top, you've got like 100% or like this pie chart, what percent of it would you think is natural ability and what percent is hard work in terms of getting him to the next level?
I don't know. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? What do you think?
I don't know, I would think maybe around like 50-50.
Yeah, I was thinking like
But-
50-50, 60-40, like there.
Yeah, I would say 60% natural talent.
Yeah.
I think there's guys that you see, you know, if you ever meet like a retired player, or you've played against someone who's played at a much high level and they've come down for whatever reason, injuries, too old for it now, they're now lost a lot of the things that the hard work's going to get them, like their fitness.
But they're still killing it though.
Yeah, but their natural talent alone, obviously the level's much lower, but the natural talent is what will make them stand out in a game at a much lower level. So I think all it took was to add the hard work to get that guy to the level above previously.
Yeah. Well, it's like one of those things, like you might have, like let's say if someone's played really high level football and they've come down, they could be in their 40s, right? And then, you know, they could be coming up against guys who are early 20s or mid 20s who physically are a lot quicker, stronger. But then this guy in his 40s still dominating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's got none of those physical attributes that he had.
Yeah, for
previously.
sure.
I don't know, I think like people underestimate just the natural ability to read the game. And that, I don't think you can really teach that. I think you can obviously teach it to a level, but I think some people just have it and other people just
A bit of experience as well, which
Yeah.
I think I've just, like, when you see like charity games where like retired players will all play and they're all old, they've gained a bit of weight, they can barely run, you just think these guys would still smoke like the highest level, like locally kind of thing.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Because, and that's purely on the natural talent, like they've still got all these attributes, like the touch and the skills and the passing, the vision, like you said, reading the game, that's all still there.
Just from experience as well of playing, and there's so much other aspects of just, I don't know, getting into the right position so they're not wasting energy or not going for the tackle that they're probably never going to get. Because everyone's probably played with those guys that come down who have played high level and they just still dominate. Like,
yeah, and I would almost be under the impression like you could just take most people and you could put them in some Premier League youth academy and you can give them all the resources, all the training, put them on the right diets and everything, and 99.99% of them aren't going to make it. Like it's the natural talent. Like think about youth academies as a whole, I guess is the point where these guys have got everything and it's only a small fraction that take it from this step to the next step anyways.
Yeah, correct.
Like how many people from the Liverpool Academy make it to the Liverpool first team? Yeah. It's such a slim number.
Yeah. I think natural talent won't get you to the top level on its own. Like I definitely think it's probably like that, maybe 60-40 or 50-50 split where like there'll be so many guys out there who are very talented and are really good, but maybe they don't work as hard. And there are exceptions. Obviously there are players who are so much better and maybe they do kind of get carried because of their natural talent. Maybe they don't work as hard as some of the others, but I think the average player, is probably having to rely on both, because if we're both at an academy and we're equal in terms of the ability that we come in at, whoever's working hard is probably the one that's going to make it, because like, obviously it's so hard to measure, like, are we coming in at an equal point? But
I would have thought the opposite, because I felt like already at that level, if you're at the highest point
Yeah.
in the academy, if you're like, I don't know, playing under 16s or under 18s, whatever it is, you're all there like working pretty hard already.
Well, I'm saying like if we come, like let's say that we get picked up by the academy and we've just started.
Oh, okay.
And then like we're equal in terms of our ability. Whoever's probably taking things more seriously or putting in the harder work is probably gonna, naturally they're gonna get better, because it starts, the gap between the best and the worst players probably starts getting a little bit more narrow at the top, where
sure.
kind of, you know, if you're 5% off, that might make a massive difference.
Well, that's huge.
How the kind of result or how you play in the game. I think when you go back, I think a lot of people will always argue about Ronaldo being harder worker than Messi. I don't know if that's the case. Like, I don't know if it's the case, like if that is, because behind closed doors, like, you know, Messi, I'm sure he's not like slacking off. Like, I'm sure he's pretty hard. But maybe like people get caught up because Ronaldo physically looks the way that he does. Like, oh, he's put in the work and he's done all these things, and maybe he's more naturally the athlete. Ronaldo could go and play probably 10 other sports and probably do really well, but Messi's probably limited to a lot less because of his physical attributes.
It almost, I think people, because Ronaldo has this kind of stigma to him that he's just like the hardest working guy, he's committed, he's doing all this extra dieting, he's got his whole team of nutritionists and everything extra that he does, he's got his home gym. People just like give him so much credit for it, but at the same time they think, oh, you know, if he wasn't just like this athletic guy who's working super hard, could he just rock up and do it on the game day? Because a lot of his traits in terms of like his speed and things like that, it almost feels like the laziest Lionel Messi can rock up and still like destroy a game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. Like, I think like if he came off a 6-month break and he rocks up, he's probably gonna go alright. Just how he plays as well. Like, he plays obviously very different to Ronaldo, who is probably more explosive, kind of relying on maybe a lot more of his physical attributes. So if he does slack off, he's gonna lose. That where Messi still, his greatest attributes are still kind of the same. Well, the measure might be now though, moving like the next couple of years, where there's 2 years. Are there 2 years between?
Yeah.
You got 2 year age gap between the two. Like, maybe let's see where Messi is in 2 years.
Like what level he's playing.
Yeah, in terms of his career or how he's playing. Because obviously we've seen kind of what's happened to Ronaldo the last 2 years. His form has really dropped off. But I'm sure he's still working as hard as he was. That natural ability, you know, he wouldn't have lost. He's still got the same game sense.
Oh, Ronaldo as well obviously has a huge amount of natural ability too.
But like his physical attributes, you know, he's obviously lost a lot of that. As you get older, you lose speed, strength. However, where maybe Messi probably does rely more on his natural ability, maybe in the next 2 years, maybe he can continue to play really well and kind of influence games. I think for Messi, maybe it might more be, he probably could still keep going, but maybe his mindset, like, oh, I've done everything I need to, I've achieved everything, I'll kind of hang
What
up.
if he wants the Champions League at PSG though? Is that going to happen?
not a PSG. That's a lost cause.
Maybe a conversation for another time.
Yeah, maybe another video, because the PSG fans are probably agreeing as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think at a core, maybe natural ability probably is just slightly ahead.
Slightly more valuable.
Someone who works the hardest in the world probably isn't going to make it if they've got no natural ability. But someone who has the best natural ability in the world probably will make it, even if they're not working hard. But let's say if Messi didn't work as hard as what he has, he could probably still go play some lower club, but still some top tier football.
Yeah.
Like, he could go play in like a...
At least professional, you'd think.
Yeah, instead of playing for, I don't know, Barca or PSG, he might be playing for one of the lower league or one of the lower teams in still the first league. But maybe he's not the greatest player of all time, maybe he's just a player.
No, I'd agree with that. I feel like there's just guys that you meet that you just think like, this guy's just born to play this sport, or I feel like, oh, I could work as hard, like so much harder, and this guy would still be better just based on natural ability. Yeah. Or you come across players that are just famously lazy, like they don't train, but you know, on a game day they just show up and they can do it.
And there's players that openly come out, and then I don't know if they do it in football, but definitely other sports that will openly come out and be like, oh, I'm not as skillful and good as the other players. Like, the thing that gets me by is just working hard.
Yeah, true.
And then, so they've already accepted it. And I think like...
But at the same time, they do have some level of ability.
Course. Yeah. They've still got some. And maybe they're being a little bit modest.
Yeah, well, that pretty much wraps up our chat today about natural talent versus hard work. Let us know what you guys think is more valuable out of those two, whether you agree with Scott or I about that. And also, if you feel like it, chuck in who you think's better out of Messi and Ronaldo, and you know, where Messi's going to be in the next 2 years too. But otherwise, that's everything from me. This has been Scott, I've been Ant, this has been Red Mate. See you in the next one.